Howdy all of you delicious people, I'm here today to review Scream 6. Letting everybody know now that you should probably go on and to have seen every Scream movie before getting to this film, because we come to find out that this movie is to tell you every killer that was to have been in prior movies. So, if you need a refresher, or if you want to finally check out all the early Screams, you should probably go on and do that, because this movie will ruin all the other films for you. And so I would say the positives for this film would be I like that this film had more gore, had seemingly more interesting kills here than stab somebody 20 times and calling it a day. I would go on and feel that this movie is to incorporate the whole phone thing, which was to really separate this slasher film from a lot of the others, which they kind of bring back more here, which I really liked. I would have to go on and state that writing-wise, this is probably the weakest Scream movie. I feel like this movie either had to have been rewritten or to have been probably written with somebody in mind who just did not want to go on and be involved in this film. Because we would go on and have Nev Campbell, who for reasons, maybe money reasons, not wanting to be involved in this film. But then again, maybe there was just other problems with this movie. Maybe she didn't like the story or whichever. But it probably all just comes down to money. Probably. Because yeah, if you're not getting paid really well to do a sequeled film, then anyways, moving on. So gonna kind of tee this movie up, and so this Scream 6 is to basically be like Scream 2 in a lot of ways. We would come to find out in Scream 2 that Sydney is to go off to college and is at some point to get proposed, or to have Jerry O'Connell be singing in a cafeteria at some point in that film. Want to remember. And we would have Sydney, who would be involved in the theater for college, and we would come to find out that by the end of that film, we would of course have Sydney, who is facing off against two foes that would end up being both Debbie Salt and would end up being Mickey, who we would come to find out that Debbie Salt is to actually be Billy Loomis's mother. And so we would have Sydney that goes on to fight off those foes. And so so Scream 6, very similar to Scream 2. It made me even figure out okay, then you could tell who the killers even are via the way that they are basically having a template of Scream 2. And I got pretty dang close, because there was one that was fairly tough to call. So we have Sam in this movie and Tara. Sam is to be seeking out therapy, trying to get the voices in her head to stop, trying to go on and want to stop herself from becoming a killer or enjoying the kill. And we would have Tara, who is trying to get away from her controlling older sister, to try and have fun, go to a Halloween party, and try and be a person that is to be of her age. So we start to find out that the Ghostface kills are to be happening yet again. So we have our killers that have gone through this drill before, but it still feels like now they are unprepared. They don't even have a thing of mace on them to defend themselves. And I just kind of think that that's dumb. You would think at some point, like, these girls would be wielding, like, guns on them all the time, like, realizing that at any moment that, like, they could be brought back into this yet again to be forced to need to go through this because they are still alive, and so on and so forth. But so, anyways, we have Tara that is going on to this Halloween party, and so after Sam is to take Tara away from that, they find out that the Ghostface Killer murderers are happening again. So we have Sam and Tara that seeks out the police for help, and we start to have the killers, we start to have the cops that are trying to go on and figure out who the killers are for this film. So, with that said, I think it's about time to just go into spoilers. This movie was a very severely weak okay, but it's probably the worst Scream movie I've seen. Just story-wise. Like, we have this just bizarre-ish, like, cowabunga moment. If you don't know what that means, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would always go on and have the whole group get together and do this, like, high-five thing and say cowabunga after that. And so we have that being bizarrely put into this film, and I'm like, that is the stupidest thing. We also have, like, certain characters that are just to be kind of thinly put into this film, and that just annoys me. We have these actors that, of course, just come off as fairly generic, and really, I was to just be like, man, like, we should have kept the whole, like, veteran actor idea. Because once we get into this new group, I'm like, this is just not the acting level I want. Going into a sixth movie, but that's just me. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into this review and go into spoilers. It's about that time yet again to, of course, go into spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this movie. In the very beginning of this, we are to have this professor who is to be this person who is to be this, like, professor of, like, slasher films and whichever. So we have this girl, Laura Crane, who is making her way to this restaurant, and she is hoping to go on and find her date there. Maybe she's on Tinder, maybe she's on Facebook dating, maybe she's on any number of things to try and get a man. Or a dog, it seems. I don't know who she was really talking to on that phone. But so, I should probably state where you should go on and see this movie, because I didn't even state that either. That should have been a good idea. Where can you go on and see this film? Zelliphonic. Zelivonic. You can check out a very poor bootleg version. Like, even the bootleg version is really poor in this movie. There are certain times where it just feels like it continues to just kind of, like, give you some dark moments or cut out or whatever, but it's better than actually having to pay to see this movie, which I would not recommend. I would wait till it comes out in streaming and see. I would wait for it. I would watch the other Scream movies and then check out this one. It's not a one you have to run to see because it's not important enough. But anyways, Laura. Laura is to be on this date, a date alone, it seems, as Laura is to get this phone call, and we have this guy who's like, well, hey, I'm running a little late, like, I got a little lost, and so Laura goes on to go outside the restaurant. She's kind of waving to hope that this guy will find her. And so the guy is like, well, hey, like kind of describe this place to me. And she's like, well, yeah, like I'm seeing red, like there's red here. And he's like, well, like I'm going down this alley. Are you anywhere by an alley? And Laura's like, well, yeah, I see this alley that's over here. And so she heads seemingly down the alley and she doesn't see this guy. And so she's like, okay, like, where are you? So the guy's making his way down this alley, supposedly, and there all of a sudden is to be a person chasing after him. And it's like, oh no, what's going to happen to this guy? As we come to find out that all of this was just a ruse to get Laura to make her way down this alley and have her be dumb for being a person who is to be this slasher horror expert, and to not realize that you should never just go down a dark alley because something's going to happen to you. So we have this killer that comes out of the woodwork and starts stabbing into Laura, and so she then dies. And we come to find out that the killer is so easily to take off his entire costume and just walk off from out of this alley. And I'm like, wait a minute, so nobody was to notice this dead body and give this guy plenty enough time to get into a costume change, and for him to just kind of probably leave one of these masks alongside this murder. And I'm like, this guy just completely gets away with it without anybody noticing? And I'm like, okay, all right. So we come to find out that this killer's name is Jason, and probably a lot of people recognize this guy from the Spider-Man Homecoming or the Spider-Man Tom Holland movies. So Jason is to make his way through the parts of town to then bump into Tara here. And like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm going to this party. Hey, save me a beer. Yeah, that sounds great. All right. So Jason makes his way on home after bumping into Tara. And so he all of a sudden is to get a phone call from Greg, who I believe is his guy that he is going to go on and start to kill with to get this movie out. So we have Jason that goes on and tells this guy, it's like, well, hey, like I just had some blue balls and I wanted to just kind of take care of it. And so he went to go on and wanted to kill this girl because of his blue balls, supposedly. So Greg goes on and like, well, yeah, like that's fine, man. Like I'm going to go on and get my practice in, as we find out the whole entire time that Greg is calling Jason, he has the voice changer on. And so Jason's like, really? Like, why are you going on and doing this? This is stupid. He's like, well, hey, man, you're getting your practice in, I'm getting mine. So we come to find the further and further that Jason is talking to Greg, that Greg is watching via these cameras. So Jason's like, oh, okay, well, you're using the cameras. Like, where are you? And so he's like, well, hey, man, how about we just kind of play a game and you can try to find me? So Jason starts looking around the house and they're playing the hot and cold game. And I'm like, okay, this is just stupid. This is stretching out time. So Jason is looking throughout the house, hot, cold, cold, hot, cold, whatever. And so eventually Jason is to further realize that he needs to go to the refrigerator because it's cold. So when Jason makes his way to the refrigerator and opens it, he realizes that his friend is in the refrigerator, sliced and diced up. And then all of a sudden Jason ends up getting stabbed, and then when he turns around, we have Jason who is telling him, hey, we have to finish this movie, and the killer is to go on and tell him F the movie, and he kills him. And then he dumps off the mask that, of course, was tied to one of the murderers from prior films. So we come to find out that these murderers are going on to have every bit of evidence that was to have been from the Woodsboro murders, or any of the things that had tied into prior Scream movies. Like, they basically have every single prop piece or shirt or whichever that any of these people were to have gone on and used in prior Scream movie things. So we have kind of like an enormous weight of massive talent thing in the later part of this film, where we just start to see this whole movie theater thing that is to have this huge amount of just memorabilia, it seems. So we go on to now have Sam, who is going through a therapy session with Dr. Stone. And I was kind of actually really happy to see the actor who was playing Dr. Stone here, because I'm like, I remember him from like Mission Impossibles. Like, I'm sure he's done a ton of other stuff, but like that's what just pops in my brain immediately. Very really good veteran actor. And so Sam is going on and talking to Dr. Stone, and so she's talking about like she's trying to like talk about her feelings, but Dr. Stone is like, well, you know what? Like, you need to really give me more information so I can really help you. And so we finally have Sam that is to go on and really tell this doctor, like, well, yeah, I was part of the Woodsboro murders, and I'd gone on and killed some people in prior, and I went on to start to like it. And we have Dr. Stone who's like, well, I need to go on and tell the authorities about this. Like, this is awful. And she's like, well, are you really going to? And he's like, well, no, because patient confidentiality. And so she's like, well, like, you're just like all the other doctors. And she walks off. So Tara is going on to this Halloween party. And so Sam is to make her way home and is asking Quinn, where is Tara? So Tara goes on and is to tell Sam the truth. It's like, well, yeah, she went off to this Halloween party, and Sam, of course, is looking off at one of her neighbors during this window, and Quinn is to go on and tell Sam, it's like, you've been doing googly eyes with that guy for like a very long time. Why don't you guys just do something about it? Like, why don't you finally seal the deal here? And we'll come to find out that they actually had in secret. So we have Sam that goes off after finding out where Tara really is. So Tara is to go off to this Halloween party, and while she, of course, is to be drinking, we would go on to have her bump into a guy, I believe, who is named Frankie. Frankie is to seemingly be dressed by, or like, Tom Cruise from Risky Business. You know the scene where he goes on and he slides in there and he's like, take those old records off the shelf. And he has like the white shirt and he has the glasses and the award and or whatever, and he's singing into it. That thing. So we of course have Tara who's talking to Frankie, and it seems that they're going to lead into this bedroom, and Chad is to have Frankie not go with her because Chad does not trust Frankie. Frankie and Chad all of a sudden have this argument that almost leads to them fighting. Sam all of a sudden is to come in and break this up and is to taser Frankie in the bowels as he drops to the ground. So Sam grabs Tara as they get out of there, and so Tara, of course, is very upset with Sam, and so while both of them are just kind of arguing, we all of a sudden get a rando person that is to toss cola all over Sam and call her a killer. Because, of course, it seems some certain people are to remember that Sam had murdered people. Even though she did it in self-defense, she's still considered a murderer in this film, which I honestly think is actually really interesting. because even if you're the good person out of this, if you did something bad, like you're still to be a bad person. That is just kind of a weird thing. It's kind of like a lot of times when you would see like a lot of superheroes, like Batman or Spider-Man, where like Spider-Man would be deemed a menace, and Batman, of course, would be a character like, well, can we trust him? Harvey Dent, can we trust him? So we would have Tara, who is to be pouting and going off to her room. And so we then have Sam, who is kind of left by the stairwell, to have her bump into Danny, who is to be seemingly her love interest, that was doing the whole googly eyes from before. So Danny, of course, would go on and be kissing up all on Sam, and we've come to find out that these people have kind of been getting laid and all kinds of things. So secretly, yeah, this secret relationship, it seems. But it's like, okay, cool. Like, I actually like that in movies where, like, you have this relationship that is kind of very secretive and whatever. It's a lot better than, like, a lot of those, like, relationships where you would have them be just very lovey-dovey in front of everybody and so on. Like, no, like, these secret relationships are much more interesting in a film, in all honesty. To where you'd find out by the end of the film, like, oh, they were together or something. I don't know. The whole entire movie, you never even knew. Whatever. So Sam and Danny are just kissing it out, and we all of a sudden have Danny all of a sudden realize that Sam is covered in soda, and he knows the exact soda. Seems a little weird. Possibly for a guy that has six-pack abs, how would he know what exactly soda is? Probably because he probably is like, no man, like I've never had a carb in like 10 years or whatever. But so anyways, we also I realized that Danny is from She-Hulk, and I'm like, oh, good for him that he went from a not so good show to a not so good movie. He's just really like going up. He's really living it up. He's really living dangerously in the world of movies and shows. So we have Sam that is to eventually hear that she needs to come up to the room, but before we end up getting that, we have Tara, who is going on and bickering with Quinn, or no, not bickering with Quinn, just talking out with Quinn, because Tara is complaining about her sister, of course, and Quinn is going on and mentioning how her brother had died, and all of a sudden Chad comes in, and Chad is like, well, hey, Tara, like, you shouldn't go on and be with that Frankie guy. If anything, maybe you need to find the right person, and maybe that right person is looking right at you. As it seemed that the two of them are consistently almost close to kissing in this entire film, which I think is rather stupid. Because it's like, hey, just do it, just don't tease that garbage. But so, we have Quinn, who is to come in to get her phone while the two of them are talking, and so, oh, I didn't block you, just did I? Yeah, you did. So we come to find that Tara and everybody are going on and watching the news to find out that the Ghostface killer is at it again. So Sam is having to need to be brought in to find out that the Ghostface killer is happening again, forcing really just Sam here and Tara. It's like Sam's like, man, we need to leave. Like, we need to escape. We need to like leave the country. We need to move. And we have Sam that has Quinn like say, it's like, well, hey, maybe you should call my dad because my dad is a detective. So Sam is like, yeah, that seems like the right move right now. So Sam goes on and is to call the officer, who is Detective Bailey, And so Bailey, it's like, well, hey, it's a good thing that you called. Because luckily, or coincidence, Detective Bailey is to be uh, Quinn's father, and he is to also be working on the Ghostface killer case. How convenient for story, right? So, Detective Bailey is to have found a driver's license that is to have Sam's face on it. So he's like, yeah, I really need to like question you about this kill. So we have Sam and we have Tara making their way to this interrogation room where we would go on and have Detective Bailey. That's like, well, hey, uh, like I don't know how really concerned you are with me being a part of this case or not. Like, hey, I can give this to somebody else. And Sam's like, no, like you being on this case is fine. So we have Bailey that, of course, ends up going on and asking both Sam and Tara questions of what their alibis were. And Sam, of course, was in a therapy session, and Tara was also to have been at a Halloween party. So both of their alibis are to be seemingly uh, legit. So they're both to be let go. And by the time all these news uh, people are out there going on and asking both Sam and Tara questions, we find out that all of a sudden Gale Weathers is in the mix. It's like, yeah, Gale. Yeah, somebody has to have been from prior Scream movies and is now in this one, besides Hayden Panettiere, uh, who of course has also been from prior Scream movie and is now in this one as a FBI agent for whatever reason. So, which I'm assuming they're going to milk like the heavens when it will probably become into sequel movies if she continues to be in all these other Scream movies. Maybe she'll get killed, maybe she won't. But so we would then have Sam and Tara, and they're talking to Gale, and they're immediately thinking that Gale just wants their story, so that way she can turn around and make another movie deal, because that's what she went on and did with the last story from the last film, and made another stab, I'm assuming. So we had Sam that goes on and is tempted to just punch Gale, and Gale dodges it, and she's like, I've had this dance before. And then Tara goes on and punches Gale, and it's like, well, I guess you didn't see that one coming. But yeah, like I was like, yeah, they're just repeating the same old song and dance as we were already to really just see in this film. So we would of course have Gale, who's not going to press any charges or whatever because she's going to be tied to this story no matter what. So we go on to have uh, us then realize that I'm having a problem transitioning here. Let me pause for a second. Okay. So we would have both Sam and Tara that are to have gotten a call from, of course, Richie's phone. And so both Sam and Tara go on and answer it, and we would come to find that they are to run off into this grocery store, and that leads to having Ghostface start to stab into people in this grocery store and start to grab this shotgun and start to fire into this grocery store, trying to find where the girls are, to have them eventually kind of knock down one of these grocery aisles against the Ghostface killer, And so when they run out of the grocery store, we just find a ghost face mask and the killer has disappeared. I think that happens a little bit earlier in the film, but I'm just going to cover it anyways. So we then go on after uh, both Sam and Tara are to get out of the interrogation room, and we have Mindy who is talking about how this is no longer a requel or a sequel. This is, of course, to be a franchise. And so Mindy is kind of making some kind of guesses of who the killer may be, how you can't go on and trust, of course, certain new people. We even have Mindy and her girlfriend, who is to have been Anika. They were at this party having some dialogue together at the Halloween party in the early part of the scene, which I forgot about. But so we have Mindy that is talking how she doesn't trust any of the new people that have come into their mix. She does not go on and trust Ethan. She doesn't go on to trust Quinn. And she doesn't even trust the woman that technically right now she is in supposedly love with. Mindy goes on to explain to everybody that everybody at this point is now up for grabs, even the main character, who would probably be Sam in this case. And so anybody at any moment could probably get killed, because why not state that? Because then you would make it so that anybody could have died at any time, and then whoever would have to kind of follow up for the next film would probably be the poster person, because they are second fiddle to whoever the main person was. Yada, yada, yada. So, Minnie goes on to explain all of this and is to have her suspicions. And so we then go in to have Detective Bailey, who is to meet up with Kirby Reed, as we are to have found that she was somehow connected to the prior Scream movie, and now she is an FBI agent who wants to work on Detective Bailey's case. It's not that she's completely taking it over, even though she realizes that she has more jurisdiction than Bailey does. And so, or kind of, she is to be more familiar with this case than Bailey really is. But so, anyways, we have her go on and want to share everything that she knows with Bailey. And so we have Sam and we have Tara, who are to go on and have this moment together, where Tara is to realize how difficult it is for Sam, because of her being connected to Billy Loomis and everything like that, realizing how tough it is for this girl to be consistently called a murderer, and so on and so forth. So they then also start to realize, as Mindy was to have mentioned before, that they are to be the core four, and Chad is like, well, hey, yeah, like, we should really go on, and we should really celebrate that. We should, like, high-five or have some weird, goofy thing that has us realize that we are the core four, which is the stupidest thing in this movie. So we go on to then realize that we have Sam, who is to go on and divulge to the group that she is sleeping with Danny, their neighbor. And so, like, oh, wow, like, finally somebody's getting something. And we come to find out that Danny, who is to be the neighbor that is kind of looking on and seeing that Quinn is all of a sudden to be getting attacked within her room, because he all of a sudden is to be walking by and sees that Ghostface is in Quinn's room. as well as seemingly Quinn is being known to have these random guys over and banging them. So we have Danny who is trying to call Sam, and he is to try to call out to anybody, and he's getting nothing. So when Danny calls, we then have Sam who is to ignore the call, and then we find out through every one of these phones there is a photo of Quinn getting killed by the Ghostface Killer. We also come to find out that Quinn's lover is to be dead in this tub also. So when they realize that Quinn is getting killed, they are looking at the door and they're like, like, should we help her? Like, are we going to get killed because of it? And so when everybody is just kind of waiting and seeing what the heck they're going to do, we have the ghost face that emerges and stabs into Mindy. And then we find out that uh, Anika is going to get stabbed pretty well, and so these characters trying to rush off to another room to protect themselves and are to put a dresser in front of this door as Mindy is holding the door off from the Ghostface Killer. So we have Danny who is to open his window and yell out to Sam and is to give her a ladder. And again, another convenient thing. And we go on to have Sam was like, seriously, we have to like climb a ladder to get to you? And he's like, do you have any other suggestions? And she's like, well, no. He's like, well, come over here, get over here with this ladder. So we have our characters desperately trying to go on and cross this ladder, and most of them get there. We have Mindy, who is kind of holding off the door as much as possible, and then she crosses the ladder. We have Anika, who, of course, is to be the last character who is to make it past this ladder. And we come to find that Ghostface is to break through this door and is to seemingly be nearby the ladder. Ghostface starts to control the ladder, starts to rock it. Anika is getting ever so closer to the rest of the characters, even to where Sam is like, hey, like, grab my hand so I can save you from possibly falling to your near death, which is going to happen very soon. So Anika falls off the ladder and is to bash her head onto this dumpster and die. That's how she dies. So we then go on to have the killer not go after any of the other people because Danny is to, I guess, probably have secured this whole place. So we go on in the following morn to have, speaking of morning, Detective Bailey is to find out that his daughter is dead. So we have Gail that is there just trying to comfort Sam, and we all of a sudden find that Detective Bailey's realized that his daughter is dead, and he's just like, oh my god. So Detective Bailey is to tell our characters that he is no longer involved in this case because of his daughter's death, but he wants to eventually still get this killer anyways. He wants to just get this killer. He's crazed. He's whatever. He's a cop on the edge. So it seems that Kirby is going to be doing quite a bit of the more investigating rather than Bailey, it seems. But so we go on to have Gail, who had figured something out, as she was to kind of looked into the prior serial murderers of the two movie buff guys. So we would have Gail find this movie theater that would have all of these movie props of prior Scream films, and we would find that this theater is to house every single one of these ghost face costumes of prior killers. And it's like, well, yeah, I could see how certain Ghostface masks are kind of aged and not so aged. Maybe they're bloody, maybe they're this, maybe they're that. So tying into all the other films in the past and how like some of the maybe Ghostface costumes would look unique in some of the other films. So they would go on and find like why is it that all of these prior things are now in this theater, and they would go on to state because like cops would go on and if the price is right would probably give up all of this stuff because there's a lot of people that go on and want like shrines of certain murders or certain kills. So yeah, so hey, if the price is right, like people are easily willing to give up this stuff. But we would come to find out it's a little bit more than that. So, especially if you've seen the film, you know what I mean. And so we would eventually get to, of course, have Gail, who's talking to Sam, and is telling her, it's like, well, hey, like, you can start out a family even more than with just one person. And so, like, having Sam realize that, like, she has an extended family if she really wants it. And so we have them go on and try to figure out how they can get to the killer is the next possible idea that they have here. So their next plan is to have Sam call out the killer in a public place and hope that it's going to sucker this killer in for them to catch him or her. So we have Bailey that has an earpiece kind of hearing what's going on with Sam to see if they need to go on and kind of get in the mix here. So we have Kirby, who is in this van with Mindy and I think with Chad. Maybe not. But, anyways, we go on and we re reference Scream 2, where I think Kirby mentions that, hey, like, they're really safe in this van, like, nothing will happen to them. And we, of course, have Mindy that brings up, it's like, well, hey, I have an uncle, Uncle Randy, that got killed in a van. So, yeah, I don't think vans are all that safe. So, we have Mindy that also brings up the fact that uh, that Kirby is tapping into Sam's phone to try to get the location of the killer. And we, of course, have Minnie. It's like, don't tell me that this is going to take way too long. And it's going to be like every cliche ransom movie where you try to call the killer and you can't figure out where the location of the killer is. And yada, yada, yada. Like, this, it's going to be milked out for far too long. And like, oh man, if they would have held out for 10 more seconds. And we go on to, of course, have Kirby that's like, I can find where this person is in like 15 seconds. And we have Mindy that's like, oh, okay. So we have Sam that goes on to call Richie's phone. And so they're calling him, they're talking to who the killer is, and kind of goading him out. So the killer is to go on and tell them, it's like, oh, you think that I'm going to be where you were at. I'm nowhere near where you're at. Because we come to find out that the killer is actually nearby where Gail is. Because Gail was like, well, hey, like, how would I go on and I go with you guys on this, on what you guys are doing? And we have the officers that are like, no, 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 like, you can't go on and do this, like, go home. So Gail going home was the worst thing for her, as, excuse me, we find that Gail is to be with a man, I believe, who's named Brooks. So Gail is with Brooks, and they are to be kind of busy doing their normal work of whatever stuff. And Gail all of a sudden gets a phone call and she answers it, and of course it ends up being the killer. So while Gail is being distracted talking to the killer, having them reminisce about Dewey getting killed at some point of the other film, and how he's going to come for her, and yada yada yada, all that garbage. We have Brooks, who ends up getting killed in the background while he's just kind of trying to make a 911 phone call, as Gail is to tell him to do so. So we find Brooks, who ends up getting tossed through this wall, it seems, and we have Gail that's like, okay, well, I guess I need to like really try to protect myself here, because Gale does a pretty good job of getting stabbed quite often, but also is to have the ability to still somehow get out of this unscathed. Because she really is like defending herself and putting up a good fight, but she consistently gets stabbed by either a knife or to get stabbed by glass pieces, when eventually Gale is to kind of toss this guy around, because she is to seemingly learn to have defended herself, because of course she has. But so we have where Gale is to have gotten stabbed, but then like Tara and Sam arrive, and so does certain EMTs, and police start to arrive, and then the ghost face killer disappears. So we, after Gale, of course, is to get hurt, we have them need to come up with yet another plan to figure out how to get this killer. So they realize that they have to use the movie theater against the killer. That they should probably go on and make this movie theater a trap. Because Detective Bailey and some of the group just comes up with this plan, so it's like, wow, that sounds like something great. We'll lock him in the elevator, and or lock them or who or whatever in the elevator, and like that'll be how we'll trap him, like as if this is some weird Scooby-Doo movie now. So we have both Sam and Tara get to the movie theater, and we have Detective Bailey, who is to come to find out, as he is to look into Agent Kirby, or Agent Reed, and he's to find out that she was drummed off the FBI because it seems that she was to have some mental problems, mental issues that were to now have her no longer be a federal agent. So we have Detective Bailey that's like, oh my god, like, Kirby's the killer, she's crazed. So we're assuming that Kirby is to then be the killer, which she's actually not. I also have to get to the subway thing, so let's get to that now. So we have our characters that go off into the subway system. And this is to be a subway where there is a plethora of different costume characters. We come to find that there's a Jason mask, there's a Freddy Krueger, there's a ton of people who are to find out that the hot new item is the Ghostface Killer mask, so everybody is bizarrely wearing it. We have Danny, who is just kind of seeing this news coverage about how the Ghostface Killer mask is to be the hot item for everyone to buy up for some goofy reason. That just seems really dumb to me, but it is what it is. They must realize that Scream is coming back again. So it's like, hey man, everybody buy up this Ghostface Killer mask, because you're going to get killed and shot by a number of people that just think that you're the killer. Because when you would go on and see any other like horror film, everybody would want to go on and dress like the killer, right? So that way they would get killed, because that seems like a great idea. Dumb. Anyways, moving on. So we're in the subway, and we have Mindy that is with Ethan. And for me, I was like, I don't trust Ethan. Ethan is to often state that he is to be gone. He was to mention that he was an econ instead of being with the group at certain times. And so he's coming up with all these excuses that I don't really buy. So Ethan is with Mindy, and we have some other part of the subway where Sam and Tara and Chad are to be together. So what happens is all of a sudden Ethan is to seemingly disappear and make his way through through not noticing Mindy whatsoever in the same car that they are both in. So Mindy all of a sudden is realizing that there is a Ghostface killer costume that is seemingly getting closer and closer to her, which she is to possibly think that she's going to get killed soon. So we have the Ghostface killer that stabs into Mindy, and then Ethan is to realize, oh yeah, hey, wow, like Mindy had gotten stabbed. So he runs to her and grabs onto her. And so Mindy is to possibly think, it's like, man, I guess I was wrong about you. You're the killer. So they get out of the subway station, and we have Ethan who is to call for help. And eventually Mindy is to be okay. We go on to have Sam, Tara, and Chad, who are just kind of finding all these people very suspicious, but eventually they head on out to the theater. So eventually what ends up happening is we come to find out that there are two killers as Sam, Tara, and Chad are waiting in the movie theater. We have both Tara and Chad who are having this moment where they're talking about 100-year-old milk duds and whatever, and we finally have them go on to kiss, and I'm like, something's gonna happen here. So we have, of course, a stabbing happened, and I was like, okay, like I was thinking, like, somebody's gonna get stabbed, something's gonna happen here. So we come to find out when Tara and Sam are to try to get away, as Chad is to chuck all these things, all this popcorn and all this stuff while all these guys are running around. We come to find that Chad is to get double teamed here, and he's to get stabbed multiple times. And we're thinking, oh, he's gonna die. No, he's not. We're gonna see him by the end of this, and he's gonna get hauled away by a stretcher, and he's like, yeah, I'm still alive. I'm going to be the Dewey character that probably gets stabbed way too many times and then eventually doesn't die until forever in this film, because Core 4, right? Where the Core 4 just stays alive in these movies, because we just have to have somebody just continue to be in these films. So Sam and Tara end up getting separated. Bailey ends up calling Sam ends up calling Sam about, like, hey, Kirby, don't trust her. She's evil. We think that she's a killer. I thought that she was the killer in a prior Scream movie, but I guess I was wrong. I ended up realizing that it was Macaulay Culkin's brother was the killer in that other film. And we also have to re-bring that back, especially when Kirby is talking to Bailey about the murders, and she has to bring back up her experience in her Scream film. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, just whatever you want to go on and do, just go ahead. So Sam is to be by herself in this one theater room, and we have it go on to get revealed who the actual killers are. So we have the two killers that meet up with Sam, and we have Sam and Tara that are together, and they're like, well, hey, like Sam grabs this brick, and she's like, okay, like let's do this. Are you ready? And like, let me know when you're ready. And so we all of a sudden have Detective Bailey who gets in the mix. It's like, hey, what's going on here? And then we come to find out that Detective Bailey is actually to be a killer, and I want to severely roll my eyes because I could have figured that out. I figured out that Detective Bailey was the killer. I detected that Ethan was the killer, but then I found out that Quinn was still alive and she was also the killer. And I was like, okay, that is just stupid. Because we come to find out all three of these characters are to really just be killers who, of course, were to be tied to Richie's family. So I'm like, God, that is the laziest freaking writing you could have ever had in a Scream movie because it's basically the same thing as the Scream 2. You really just have uh, Detective Bailey who is like, yeah, I'm Richie's dad. And I'm like, oh my God, like, that is the same thing from Scream 2. You're freaking lazy. I don't care if you have three killers in this movie. It's still lazy writing. It really is. So we go on to now have everybody wanting to have Sam to put on her ghost face father's costume because they want to point the fact that Sam is going to be the legit killer of all of this because she had killed Richie. So we have Sam and Tara that are trying to figure out where to run. And so they head up onto this balcony, and we have a point where Tara is to kind of slip, and Sam grabs her, and we have a moment where, uh, I should bring up the moment where Sam was talking to her father, Billy, in this reflection, and it's telling her, it's like, well, hey, don't trust Kirby, like, don't trust Bailey, don't trust anybody. And even to the point where Sam was like, I can't even trust Danny. And Danny's like, no, I get it. Like, I'll leave, and then I'll come back later on in the film with all these cops and whatever in this place. So, so we had Sam that was talking to Billy, and Billy's like, you need to clear this entire area. Do not trust anybody. Trust yourself. Grab a weapon and look around. Because we, of course, have Kirby, who is to have this gun, and she's like, well, hey, I'm going to be the only one holding onto this gun, because, of course, I'm an FBI agent. I don't trust anybody. So we even showcased the broken TV that had been the one that killed Stu. So I'm like, so is Stu never going to come back? Because I feel like we could have written in some way or another. We can bring back Lillard or the guy who played Stu. Like, we can come up with a way to bring him back. I honestly think that they should, because that would have been a heck of a better killer reveal than what they did in this film. So we have Sam and we have Tara who's running around, and we have at one point where Tara is to seemingly slip out of Sam's hands, and she is to fall right into seemingly Ethan's. So while all of a sudden Quinn is being so close to Sam, it's like, hey, I'm gonna get you kind of thing. So while Bailey is just kind of watching along as the two proteges go on and take out these two. So Sam is to see this gun while Sam is to also have a knife on her belt. And so we go on to have Sam's sister, Tara, that tells her, it's like, well, hey, you need to go on and drop me. And Sam's like, "Are you sure?" And Tara's like, "Hey, I can take care of myself." So Sam goes on and gives Tara this knife and then drops her. So Tara goes on to get stabbed by Ethan, and then Tara goes on to uh, murder Ethan here. And so Sam goes on to grab the gun, fires into Quinn, and like realizes that she runs out of bullets, and so she like goes on and tries to fight off Quinn. That all ends up being successful. So this all eventually ends with Detective Bailey, and he is to go on and get a phone call from the killer, who is obviously uh, Sam in disguise. So we have Detective Bailey that is to look around and realize that, after all, uh, Sam is to put on the Ghostface Killer Billy costume. And it's like, oh yeah, you finally live up to your legacy. You're finally going on and putting on the costume. And so we have Sam that goes on. It's like, okay, what's your favorite scary movie? So we have Detective Bailey, who gets caught off guard by Sam, and she stabs into him multiple times. And then we think that Sam is not going to go through with it and kill this guy. And Detective Bailey, it's like, oh, okay, well, like, we kind of have him where it could be his word over hers because he's a detective, and who is anybody going to go and believe? So, we would go on to have, of course, Sam stated as like, well, the one that's left alive, and the ones that are left alive. So Sam stabs into Bailey's eye and kills him. So we then come to find out like that Gail is still alive, that she was to say that she didn't get killed, and we have Sam and we have Tara that kind of make it out of this theater while the cops are all there and Dan is still there. So, or Danny is to be there with a bunch of cops. So by the end of all this, we come to find out that Chad is still alive, and so is Mindy. She's recovered. And so we have Chad that's like, well, hey, like the core four, and Danny's like, what's that about? And so like they're all getting together. It's like, well, yeah, it's just an us thing because like you haven't been here long enough. So you haven't been through all these scary movies, and plus you haven't been near death really any point of this film, so you're not even a part of this. So they do the core four thing. We have Chad who's leaving with Mindy and Tara. So at the end of all this, we are seeing Sam, who is to see the ghost face mask, and she's tempted to put it on and become the killer. And then like Tara convinces her to do otherwise and just like, hey, let's go. So that's how we just kind of leave this movie. And with that said, that's to really just end this review. I'm going to get the heck out of here so I can go on and review other things. Probably like 65 or some other stuff is probably what I want to review today because it's a new movie. I'm sure there might just be some random thing that I would have to also go on review, but I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. There might have been something that I might have gotten really confused about, or there might have been just some choppy things that I forgot about, but I think I kind of covered everything. I'm fine with it if I didn't cover the whole movie, because when really looking at it, there's probably going to be a sequel to this film, probably somewhere down the gate, and if there is, then I can go on and do some rebuttals, like, oh yeah, I forgot about this scene, or yeah, I didn't cover this, or yeah, I didn't do this. But anyways, I think the core things are just kind of covered, so with that said, goodbye everybody. Bye everybody. One thing that I also want to cover, kind of was thinking about it afterwards. When Ethan was fighting with Tara, Tara stabbed Ethan in the mouth, and killed him that way. Sam shoots Quinn in the head. I think there was also at some point a scene where Kirby goes on and like drops a TV on somebody. It's like, yeah, I saw that movie once. Because we go on and have Mindy and both Kirby that are looking at like the broken TV and so on and so forth, and just kind of reminiscing and talking about how they both know a lot about movies, and they start talking about like which movie is to be the best movie and so on and so forth, and they talk a lot about that throughout this little scene that they have together, where it's like, oh, you know a lot too, so do I. uh we had Kirby that was in the mix with Sam and Tara, but she was kind of taken out fairly quickly within that movie theater scene, as we have Tara and Sam who realize that this trap is meant for them and is to not be meant for the killer, that they're kind of stuck there. So we have Kirby that is to bring in her gun as Detective Bailey is there. As she tries to shoot some of the killers, they run off. Detective Bailey's in there. Detective Bailey goes on to shoot Kirby, and then Kirby ends up eventually getting stabbed. We then find out who the killers are and how they're connected, and we would go on to also have some home movies that we would find that Richie would have made, that is to, of course, not be so well done, because, of course, Richie is probably not at all involved in this film. So we would go on to, of course, have Richie, his dad, Bailey, who then goes off and is to reveal all that jazz. So with that said, yeah, I think that covers most of everything that I was to rethink about. I think there might have been probably a bunch of other things that I probably had forgotten. But other than that, I think I'm going to go on to just calling this a video. So with that said, bye everybody. Bye everybody.